Now, revolutionary greetings, comrades, once more. Welcome to our Consciousness Study Group. Of course, this is a group where we study the works of Kwame Nkrumah, the philosophy and ideology for decolonizing Africa, the key aim of total liberation, unification and development of Africa. And today we are going on with chapter 3, where we are studying society and ideology. So the paragraph highlighted is our paragraph for our reading today. Then we'll share our thinking once we read the paragraph. So once again, feel most welcome. Now, as usual, we will do the reading of this paragraph. So anybody who is willing or ready to read for us this paragraph, then we can start engaging the paragraph. I know it's basically about imperialism and its effect about imperialism and how we can overcome imperialism by liberating ourselves as a people. So this paragraph is just a brief paragraph, but it has a lot that we need to discuss today on the nationalist awakening and what we need to do in terms of the mind so that we can actually fight and bring down imperialism. So anybody who is ready to read for us that brief paragraph, please do so that we can start sharing our thinking about this. Anybody?
I'll read, King Brother. Greetings, comrade. It's Portia.
Greetings, sister. So please go ahead. Thank you. And maybe read very slowly.
Yes, please, King Brother. And if I am going too fast, please interject so that I can correct myself. Thank you. Imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism, will continue to flourish in different forms as long as conditions permit it. Though its end is certain, it can only come about under pressure of nationalist awakening and an alliance of progressive forces which hasten its end and destroy its conditions of existence. It will end when there are no nations and peoples exploiting others. When there are no vested interests exploiting the earth, its fruits and resources for the benefit of a few against the well-being of the many.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Portia, for this. So, comrades, this is what you want to discuss. Imperialism. And basically, what we are calling you tonight is to share with us what you think about this. What can be done? What should be done about the text we read? Are there maybe contemporary examples you can give but also how do you think about what Nkrumah is writing. This is actually Nkrumah writing this in this book. And you remember Nkrumah has written books. There was imperialism, the last stage of capitalism. There's neocolonialism, the last stage of, you see? So all these books are aligned. And permit me to read again this very slowly again, as you try to maybe have time to form your thinking. What we want you to share with us is what do you think, not even an understanding. Thinking is the highest level of consciousness. So we read the text, you understand the text, you internalize the text, then you come up with a thinking. So we're interested in that level of thinking than what we call the consciousness, which is actually in line with the consciousness. So we're interested in the highest level of reasoning, which is the thinking level. So I'll read it again and you're free to share your thinking. It's not wrong. Any thinking is correct as long as we can be able to get it a bit. So let me read it again. Imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism, will continue to flourish in different forms as long as conditions permit it. Though its end is certain, it can only come about under pressure of nationalists awakening, an alliance of progressive forces which hasten its end and destroy its conditions of existence. It will end when there are no nations and people exploiting others, when there are no vested interest exploiting the earth, its fruits and resources for the benefit of a few against the well-being of the many. Just to give you a brief background on this, we have been engaging on various elements of the relationship between ideology and society, the philosophy, and we realized that in society is made up of the what you call the dominant segment. So the dominant segment is the dominant group in a society. And as you can see in our previous paragraph, that which is just above says that just as there are competing ideologies in the society, so there can be opposing ideologies between different societies. However, while the society's different social system can coexist, the ideology cannot. There is such a thing as peaceful coexistence between states with different social system, but as long as oppressive class, which is more of related to this what you're talking about, as more of oppressive classes exist, there cannot be such thing as peaceful coexistence between opposing ideologies. So comrades, once again, who is willing to go first to share with us what do you think about what's written here? Please share with us your thought. Let me know if you're willing to share with us what you think. Just either unmute yourself or let your hand be up. Please go ahead.
Yes, can you, greetings everybody. Greetings, Barabijan. Can you just shed a bit more light on what nationalist awakening entails?
Thank you. Brother Kwame? Brother Kwame?
Yes, Brother Pigeon.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Are you in a position to help us with what Brother Woodrow is asking?
Yes, I mean, Nationalist Awakening. I'm sure Brother Welcome understands it because he's based in a country where, or comes from a country that has experienced nationalist awakening. And to the extent that now there is a nation called Namibia. And after the Second World War, Namibia, not as it is today, but as it was then, was, it would appear, the history shows, I'm starting to be corrected, was put under South Africa as a protectorate, something of the sort. And Namibians weren't happy with what South Africa was doing in Namibia. And so they approached the UN for the status of a nation, and that was granted. And fast forward today, Namibia is a nation led by our honorable sister. So yes, that's nationalist awakening. So it is when. So what is a nation? What is a nation? So a nation is a group. It's a group of people who share some things in common. It doesn't have to be everything, but share some things in common. When you go back into history, in terms of the beginnings of humanity, it was the family. The family then evolved into a community. Community then evolved into ever larger communities, and at some point we had whole ethnic groups as nations, like the Ashanti nation of West Africa, and so on. So yeah, and then as human society evolved, we came to a situation where it appears that different groups, different ethnic groups, could even combine to form nations. And one of the best examples in the 20th century, even though it came with a lot of criminal actions, is the United States of America, which was a nation built out of different nations. So you had different people from all over the world. You got the Irish, the English, the Germans, the Africans, even though the Africans were taken there as slaves initially. Not all Africans were slaves, though, and there were black people already in America who were indigenous to America itself. And then you had different nations coming to America those days from different parts of the world, and they still do up to today. And you have one nation.
You're back on air.
Sorry,
I lost you completely.
Was it the now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You have been audible, Brother Kwame. Maybe Sawindo had some issues.
Okay.
And so then you had a nation. So the United States of America is one of the best examples of what is possible, because you hear some people say that, how can you have one nation when we are all different ethnic groups and all that kind of nonsense? You hear people say that all the time. Museveni, as you know, is one of the leading ones who says that. You still have Africans who say that, we're all different ethnic groups. How can we form one nation? That's all complete nonsense. If the will is there, if the political will is there, it will happen. Anyway, what I'm saying is America is a very good example of I'm not saying America was from the 20th century. Of course, America was formed in the century before, following the struggle for independence from England. You remember, America was a colony of Britain and of England, and they had some differences, so they decided to fight for independence. And the English said no, and they went to war. And the result is that they won their independence. And King George went mad when he lost the colonies, because the colonies was a source of great wealth. So we are talking about imperialism here. So nationalist awakening. So the Americans today, what we call the Americans today, were not a nation before. They also had their nationalist awakening. And then they decided to form a nation, and they had to go to war with the English over that. And you had the Englishmen, some live in Louis, not too far from where I live, going to America, talking about the rights of man and the right of men to form their own, and so on and so forth. And so they formed the nation. So before Nkrumah arrived on the continent and was fighting for the birth of African nations, you recall that when you look at the map of the world, there was no African nation except the ones the 8 that were already either on the African continent, but not African countries, and were independent. I'm talking about Egypt, Ethiopia, Sierra Leone, from the British Liberia, formed by the Americans for freed slaves. And you got Egypt, you got Morocco, I think, also in North Africa. And then you have South Africa that wasn't considered a colony. So these countries were seen as nations in their own right, but there was no black nation. And you recall that Marcus Garvey was the one that lighted the torch. And if you look at his opinions on philosophies, you can see a lot of stuff there about nationalist awakening. Anyway, after 1945, the Pan-African the Pan-African Conference in 1945 in Manchester here in England. You will recall that the Africans were told or the trade unionists. You remember the 1945 conference was organized by trade unions. Many people forget that. And so the message was, go back to your colonies and fight for the liberation of your colonies as a first stage. And in West Africa, the idea was that the liberated West African states, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and so on, would form a West African Federation. That was the idea when they left Manchester. You remember, in those days, the nationalist awakening was also across. So India, for instance, Indians that were in England were working with the Africans. And the people forget this, that we were working together. We all worked together. You understand? And the Indians, you remember, led by Gandhi, they got the independence first in 1947 as a nation. Of course, they were separated. The Muslims got their separate nation, Pakistan, and then the Indians got the rest. But there was no India. India, before India was born, through Lord Mountbatten, was like Africa. It was separate and different, if you like, tribal groups or ethnic groups. And some of them were very big, like the Akans. Akans are huge. The Akans, for those of you know, they go from Togo all the way across Ghana to Ivory Coast. And they come all the way towards the coast in Zima, where Nkrumah comes from. It's part of the Akan nation. Akan is huge. So we have some really big groups. The Zulu, as I understand, was also huge. Not all groups are huge. Anyway, so you had the nationalist awakening. Anyway, fast forward, and they went Banda. I keep mentioning Banda because Sister Chizomo is here. She's from Malawi, as you know. So Banda also went to Malawi and to fight for independence. Nkrumah went to the Gold Coast. Azikiwe, who inspired Nkrumah, he was in then Nigeria, and so on and so forth. So the nationalist awakening is the reality that Africans must form a nation in order to take their place in the world of nations. Because the world of ethnic or tribal nations, as it were, for example, the Oromo of Ethiopia as a nation on their own, the Igbo, you remember the Igbo wanted their own nation. It didn't work for all kinds of reasons. The Ashanti, as you know, they were really very powerful in those days. That those days are now gone, and that there was a need to form nations that were in line By the way, I'm not a historian. All I'm saying is philosophical. Yeah. Anyone knows the history better than me, please feel free to share. So the idea was that Africans needed to form a nations, and this nation must be an intersection of different ethnic groups, you see. And so Nkrumah led the struggle for the nationalist awakening in West Africa, and in fact, as we later got to know, on the entire continent. And not everyone was happy with this new type of nation, because not all Africans are progressive. Some Africans are conservatives, and some Africans are liberals, and some Africans, like myself, are progressives. So the most progressive ones wanted a new nation. So even magazines were formed, you recall. Brother Welcome, you recall, magazines were formed called The New African. And all this was to say that there was now a new African on the world stage. And that African was not linked to his or her tribal or ethnic group. And in fact, in Tanzania, our brother took it further, where we understand, like in Ghana, where you came from, people didn't even know where you came from, in terms of your ethnic background. All they know is that you are Tanzanian. In the same way as Rwanda now doesn't differentiate between Tutsis and Hutsi and Hutsis. He said we are all Rwandese. They don't say I am Tutsi or I am Hutu, because we remember what that did. It tore the nation apart. So brother Welcome, the nationalist awakening is what brought Africa from under colonial domination to the world stage, where Africans now, after they got independence, then began to form nation states. The problem is that those nation states, some of them are not viable. They cannot compete as nations in all kinds of ways. So there was a need for a new nation, you see. And that new nation is the only nation that can take on imperialism, because imperialism is based on divide and rule. And if you have 55 separate nations, the divide and rule will continue. But if these 55 nations come together as one, then we move from, so then we would have moved from colonial territories to African nations to the supra-African nation, where now, when you talk about an African passport, people stand up. Think about it. Today, if you have a Ghanaian passport, Nigerian passport, South African, who respects it? But if we have an African passport, then everybody's going to wake up. Yes. So what I'm saying is that the next phase for us in terms of nationalist awakening, Brother Welcome, is that Africans must now move to the next stage of nationalist awakening, where we should now merge our sovereignties and form one African nation. That is the struggle today, because even progressives, some of them are stuck in the neo-colonialist mentality. Even in Nkrumaists in Ghana, people very progressive are stuck in the neo-colonial mentality. So it's nationalist awakening.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Sawindok, do you still have any question? Sawindok, do you still have any question or concern in regards to what Brother Kwame has said? Okay.
Yeah, maybe I would beg for
Okay.
one last comment.
Yes.
This nationalist awakening is the one that culminates into nationalism, or is nationalism already there before nationalist awakening?
So, Brother Welcome, there were nations, but not in the modern sense, if you see what I mean. So there were nations, but not in the modern sense. But nations in the modern sense all have one register called the United Nations, and that is where some of us don't like the UN. That is understandable. But in the current modern world, until Africa unites and decides to set up its own register, the register right now of nation states is in the organization called United Nations. It was formed by those who formed nations earlier than us. Some of the nations that formed the UN were not imperialist nations. China is on the Security Council. China never colonized Africa. US never colonized Africa in a traditional sense. But in the UN Security Council, you have France. France colonized large swathes of Africa. You have England sitting on the Security Council. They colonized Africa. Russia never colonized Africa. So that register is a register of nations. That is where, if you are a nation, that is where you are recognized. People forget, and those of you who don't know, in Ghana became a huge debate. People claiming that Nkrumah did not found Ghana. Nkrumah is not the father of the nation, that other people formed the nation. Nkrumah just came and this and that. Well, but what people forget is that the definition of what a nation is a legal thing, right? It's a legal definition in international law, what a nation is. And people forget that. And the body that recognizes, if you like a court that recognizes nations as a world court, is the UN. And people forget that when Ghana was formed, Ghana was registered at the UN as a new nation, the first sub-Saharan African nation. But I welcome. I don't want to go on and on. So
Okay.
there, if I've answered your question, feel free to
Thank you. Sawindok, before I go to Sister Malin.
Yeah, no, you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, Sister Malin, we are in the first phase of either asking questions in regards to what you think is, first of all, any definition you want. Brother Kwame has tried to define what is a nationalist awakening, but also feel free to share your thinking to the text, which you've just read now. So let me first of all take the hands that are up, but we always go around and everybody, we ensure that you have a time to share your thinking with us. Sister Malin.
Oh, I just wanted to refer to the part that's highlighted where it says the imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism, which will continue to flourish in different form as long as conditions permit it, though its end is certain. It can only come about under pressure of nationalized awakening and an aliens of progress force, which hence its end and destroy its condition of existence. It will end when there is no nation and people exploiting each other. When there were no vast interests in exploring the earth, its fruit and resources for the benefit of a few against the well-being of many. That really resonated with me because I just
Sister Malin.
Sorry?
Thank you for reading for us. It's been actually a while before you read the text for us. Thank you very much for at least doing the reading again. So please go ahead and share your thinking.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, the imperialists, where it says it will end when, we stop exploiting the many. And I just think people are standing up now and want to be stopped to stop the exploitation of the many. And they said it will end, but when the exploitation stop, and I'm just thinking, will the exploitation ever stop? But it's saying that it will. And is that when resources run out or what? And I just found that, the whole thing quite poignant to say the least. And that's what's going on now. People are exploiting the mass, and they need to come to an end. It needs to come to an end, but they reckon the end will only come when the vast interest of exploiting the earth and the fruit and the resources for the benefit of a few and the well-being of many. So yeah, when is that going to happen? It's just an interesting thought for us to think about, because it's the exploitation that create this imperialism of one thinking they're better than the mass, a few thinking they're better than the mass. And that really sank into my head and made me wanted to say something regarding it. And yeah, so
Thank you.
yeah, we just have to wait for that day to come. And I don't know whether we will be any of us will be alive. And
No,
I just also wanted to mention about Brother Kwame mentioning about the Ashanti, because me and someone was having a discussion the other day, and they were kind of being negative about people not fighting in Africa to make changes. And I pointed out to them about the Zulu and the Mau Mau, because those were the two major ones we ever hear about. And I remember growing up and being told that all kind of things about them that was negative, which was lies as per usual. But the Ashanti, I was glad when I heard about them, so I can add them to my list. And then Brother Kwame said they were huge. I assume they were fighters as well, trying to, stop the oppression. Thank you.
thank you. Sister Marion, I'll go to Brother Bernard because of time as well to give members to contribute. But I think, Sister Marion, when you're asking when will it end, the answer is straight in the text. It will only end when there's nationalist awakening and when there's alliances of progressive forces. So unless those two cannot be attained, then probably that's... But we are seeing it's going on now. But let me hear what Bernard has to say.
Yeah, we are awakening. A lot more people are awakening, and yeah, so thank God for it all.
Yeah.
Thank
Brother Bernard?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, coordinator. As Marlene is speaking, what came to my mind, what I look at case examples. But first, Marlene, Asante itself means it's amalgamation of forces, different group of people, or let's say different nations that form that. The word Asante comes from something like that. Well, the second point is, if you look at the issue of the few exploiting the mass, the majority, and I always look at the situation of South Africa, which I query, having a minority sitting on the whole majority of about 80% and exploiting them, and nothing can be done for people to free themselves to be what they are, and also to grow their potential. You see, in the same way, we see the same group of people who, compared to African population, would be a minority, and yet are exploiting the entire continent of Africa. Not even they are here on the continent, but they are outside. yet are able to do what they want to do with us. And I have recently come with this provocative idea that why we don't make nuclear bombs, because that is what they fear. They fear weapons of mass destruction. That is why they can't attack Russia. That is why they can't attack Belarus, because Russia has sent a nuclear bomb there. And that is why they can't attack China and some of these Asian countries. And that is why they are stopping Iran from developing a nuclear bomb, so that anytime they can attack them as they like or as they wish. So, so long as I feel like Africa, we remain helpless, looking for a savior from above, a messianism, which has become excessive in Africa. And it's make us passive society that we cannot see within us. That's force which I can see in a person like Traore and some others also. I can't mention all of them. Uh-huh. You see, it's when we recognize that it is within us, it is we, the continent people, are a force. And this is where I think that we are not recognizing that. And so long as we are not recognizing that, it's going to be a future and a future and a future. And when would that future come? That's the question I'll put. I will leave at the end. Thank you.
Now, today, comrades are leaving questions at the end. Probably we are also here to try to discuss the same and come up with the solutions. But I think the very fundamental issues that underlines the need for unity as a very requisite towards that end of imperialism. But let me first of all hear what also others think, because that's my thinking. But let me go around. We will be able to have time also for me to share my thinking. But let me go around and hear what also others think. I'll go to straight here is Sister Portia, who read for us, then Sister Tapua. I'll go two sisters. After that, I'll go back to Brother Ja, who came first here, Ja Musa. So, Sister Portia.
Thank you, King Brother. Okay, as usual, I'll just go per sentence, not my opinion, but what I think the text says. So the first sentence is the conditions. So those could be health challenges, economic, pardon me, I had something in my, some saliva in my throat. Health challenges, economic poverty, and additional social injustice. Those conditions, they permit imperialism. So when you see economic poverty, you see health challenges and additional social injustices, imperialism slash capitalism exists. And that imperialism could be broken down into gluttony, greed, for example. The second sentence is that imperialism is finite. And there is a caveat. It's finite when national, with the national awakening. And arguably, if you put it in a contemporary context, those could be, for example, Gen Zers, Pan-Africanists, revolutionary, anarchy. I stumble on that word, but that that also could include anarchists. Pardon me that about that word. And so that national awakening with Gen Zers, Pan-Africanists, et al., could also come together with alliances of progressive forces. Now, arguably here we don't have a definition, and I haven't seen the other texts before this. Yet again, if I look at it in contemporary, an example could be the Gulu of the United States of America, the Maroons of Jamaica, the Alliance of Sahel States. So those Gen Zers, Pan-Africans, revolutionary et al. Who are in the Gulu of the United States of America, the Maroons of Jamaica, are the Alliance of the Sahel States. When they come together, then they can defeat this finite imperialism. Now, the third sentence, it's the Queen's sister, the elder, who spoke about her questioning about when no nations and people are exploding. And then King Brother Pigeon said it's in the text. The question is, has there ever been exploitation before capitalism? But if we just take the sentence as is, when no nations and people exploit each other, imperialism will cease. When a few people globally are no longer benefiting exorbitantly, be that financially, socially, culturally, scientifically, imperialism will cease. So what here then comes, in my opinion, my purview, what should be done? I continue to advocate that Akibulanese, we must, and I emphasize the verb must, remove ourselves from the oppressive system or systems, and that will be hard. That can be sanctions because we will break agreements. That could be war, and from war, that can be lives lost. But the current oppressive systems, i.e. capitalism, imperialism, it cannot be resolved by staying in it, in my opinion. I yield.
Thank you, sister, for sharing with us your thinking. Before I go to Sister Tapua, I see Jalal. Welcome, Jalal Hashim. It's been a long time having you with us, and thank you for keeping the struggle in Sudan going. I don't know if Sister Tapua, will you allow I go to Jalal, or if that's okay with you?
That's all right. Thank you, my brother. You can just share.
Thank you. Jalal, please go ahead, and then I come to Sister Tapua.
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, thank you. I believe that this is one of the most interesting presentation, even though I couldn't catch it from the beginning, because it tackles one of the most problematic issues we are facing here in Africa, that is the nation statehood. And when we say the nation statehood, we have to go to the genesis of this idea. The nation statehood appeared in history in 1648, when the peace accord of Westphalia was signed between the Holy Roman Empire and what came later to be known as the Lowlands Republic, which became later the Netherlands. That peace agreement that ended what is called in European history the religious wars, the 100-year war, the 100-year war, the 80 years war, and then the 30 years war. That, and then later, Netherlands, immediately England broke away, then German, then France, and later Spain, etc., until we have present-day European nations. But that agreement, and that for the first time we have a state recognized territorially and also recognized as sovereign and independent state, from in which the power is drawn from the people, but not from on high, contrary to the Holy Roman Empire, which drew its power from on high, from the divinity, from God, from etc. So that which made the basis for what is we see now as nations. Okay. Now the problem here that the Westphalian state is swinging between two axes. One which I call in my writings the melting pot perspective, and the other is the unity in diversity perspective. The melting pot that a nation will be built on the hypothesis that all the people belong to an epical father, and this is why they speak one language, like German, they speak German language. France speak French language. England, English language. And assuming that they belong to one race. This is the melting pot. And here we have the concept of minorities who do not fit into this big nation or big ethnic group will be considered as minorities. If we come to the unity in diversity perspective, it is completely different. That if you bring, for instance, if you in an area, if you bring 1 million Eskimo, 1 million Red Indian, 1 million Black African, 1 million Aboriginal from Australia, with each group speaking their language, you make a lingua franca for them, and then you call them the state of heterogeneity. Let us say that. The theory says that in 5 generations, a lot of values and awareness shared in common will come into being. And this, of course, has been proven by Nyerere when he brought Tanganyika and Zanzibar, and now we have Tanzanian identity, Tanzanian nation. This has been proven even less than 5 generations. Now, when the European came to colonize Africa, Middle East, etc., they divided the areas among themselves. When they came to live, because the concept of the state they have, they made us by default nation statehood. In what regard? What the speaker referred to as the United Nations. But within, if you come right into this state, you find heterogeneity, you find diversity, linguistic diversity, ethnic diversity, etc., etc. One of the main problems of the post-colonial state in Africa is that it has been stuck with the melting pot perspective, in which the biggest ethnic group will assimilate or try to assimilate the other ethnic groups, and just like a black hole, using the power of the state. We never went to the other perspective. If we went to the other perspective, we would have developed our countries into truly citizen-based states. And that is exactly what the nation statehood stands for. And this is the main challenge that facing us, we Pan-Africans. Now, the awakening we are seeing, it is all about the outcome of so many different ethnic groups, ethnic culture, etc., living within the realm of the nation statehood, which was structurally nation statehood, but functionally it wasn't like that. It was like a black hole. This is why our differences are being used by imperialism. This is how imperialism is working in Africa. And right now, the nation statehood, or the Westphalian nation statehood, now has become a challenge to imperialism. Now they want to liquidate it. They want to liquidate it. And this is exactly why they made Daesh there to liquidate 5 countries, and Boko Haram here to liquidate by chaos. And the same war in Sudan to liquidate, so that we get divided all over again, but not into Westphalian nation statehoods. No, into emirates, like the Emirate of Monaco. You know, there are more than 30 to 50 little statelets. They are all emirates in the Mediterranean coast, European Mediterranean coast, and that what they are independent but not sovereign. For instance, Monaco, the biggest of them, its sovereignty is on France, and this exactly how they carved. The British carved what is called now United Arab Emirates. It is a pre-Westphalian state. It is and it is completely used now to play this role of creating the chaos. You see, and now this what the model they are going to apply here, because now exactly the awakening and the development by default, unfortunately, not by vision of the nation, Westphalian nation statehood. The people are awakening, and the people are now we are on the brink of getting ourselves relieved from the post-colonial state and go into the citizen-based state, which is the truly Westphalian state. Thank you, and thank you so much for allowing me to say this, and sorry for being longer than I could.
No, Professor Jalal, you don't have to apologize. Thanks for giving us that history. Brother Kwame had said initially he's not an historian, but Brother Kwame, you can come in.
Yeah, brother Jalal, I know you've been with us before, and you've joined us again today. Please, I know Brother Pigeon is in touch with you. Let's meet and put together a paper on this very question, because it's clear to myself, I'm sure to others, that you have a deep understanding of the issues, the peace of Westphalia and the 30 Years' War, the 80 Years' Wars, and so on, and how the modern nation state was built, and how Marcus Garvey accepted the idea and championed it, and Nkrumah was inspired. Nkrumah left the Gold Coast, went on the inspiration of Azikiwe of Nigeria, and went to the US, and so on and so forth. So we had a Saturday session about 2 weeks ago, I believe, Brother Pigeon, here 2 weeks ago, on the identity issue, and it was clear. One of the questions that was asked was, how can you talk about an African identity without an African nation? And you look at our continent, even in Ghana, everywhere, people are so wedged to the new colonial state that they just can't see the wood for the trees. And like you said, it's being used. So in fact, as you alluded, they want to turn Gaza into a kind of a holiday, into a holiday space where people like Trump can buy property and go on holiday and so on. So, to cut a long story short, please, let's put together a paper on this very issue, because I think this issue of imperialism and the nation state of Africa is, in my humble opinion, the most important issue on the table today. And our presidents are not dealing with it. Some of them are asleep, as we know. Some of them have no clue what it is all about. They are just there, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So brother Pigeon, do link us, and let's put something together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Jalal. As always, I'll get in touch. We've actually been working with Professor Jalal in this, and the letter we sent for signatures of various organizations to send to us the solidarity for Burkina Faso. It was a conversation with Professor Jalal, and he's a good friend. So I think we had feedback already on the same. Yes, so I think we'll just pick up the feedback a bit and see how we can now train it towards a paper.
Yeah. In fact, it's an interesting discussion, because you remember that the Sudanese state was one state before it was broken up into North and South Sudan. So Professor Jalalu is in a very good position to explain to us how, like he was saying, how this will lead to the Monaco type thing, and so on. So let's link up and
okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sister Tapua, sorry for keeping you waiting for that long. Please go ahead, sister.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
I'm still
hello.
trying to digest what Professor Halal has said. Very interesting, an interesting perspective. But when I read the passage, sorry I came in late. What struck me was the last three sentences ending, it will end when there are no nations and peoples exploiting others. My first reaction was, why nations and peoples have been split? Because for me, I'm seeing it as imperialism will end when there are no nations exploiting others. But it could continue when there are peoples exploiting others. So there's a possibility of nations banding to exploit other nations, or groups of peoples who might not necessarily be in nations exploiting others. And then the second point there that would bring an end to imperialism is when there are no vested interests in exploiting the earth. What I'm seeing is that it's the vested interest that's a problem. Because when there are no vested interests exploiting the earth, means exploitation of the earth could take place for the benefit of all. But it's this vested interest that becomes a problem, that perpetuates imperialism for the benefit of the few. And once we get there too, for the benefit of the few, I come back to Ubuntu, because the concept of Ubuntu is when everyone cares for everybody else, and when exploitation of one will reflect on the condition of the other. But in the context in which Professor Halal has presented us with, it's how to get back to that position. Because, for example, when I sit down and think about the functions of Ubuntu, I'm thinking, if, for example, the stage was set and Ubuntu was the principle by which we lived, the Europeans would not need to worry because of the fairness embedded in the belief. And therefore, I think it's getting our principles right and then understanding how to get rid of imperialism. But what is it that should follow? Should it be Ubuntuism? I end there.
Thank you, Sister Tapua, for also sharing your thinking with us. And those are actually questions that we need to brainstorm on and see what we think about it. But let me get to Ja Musa. Ja Musa.
Sorry, can you hold on before you move on? Nobody has asked what is imperialism, but I welcome asked what is nationalist awakening. But the key.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes,
Ja Musa, Ja Musa,
hold
wait
on.
a bit, brother Kwame, to go and then you'll come back. He was trying to explain imperialism, please.
So the key word in that whole paragraph is imperialism. And I was hoping somebody would ask, well, what is that? But nobody has asked. So I take it that we all understand what it means.
No, please go ahead. Don't assume we understand. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Now, in Nkrumah, Osaji Dr. Kwame has written a book called Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. And let me briefly remind us all that all this concept of capitalism, imperialism, and so on started with a political economist called Karl Marx. and he wrote a book called Das Kapital. Karl Marx was a German, by the way, but he lived in England, and he wrote a book called Das Kapital. There is no other book that explains capitalism better than Karl Marx. After Karl Marx, Marx's work, his works was picked up by another worthy author called Vladimir Lenin. And Lenin wrote a book, the title of which was Imperialism, the Last Stage of Capitalism. And what is imperialism? That's the point. Imperialism is capitalism beyond its borders. But what is capitalism? Capitalism is when a few people own the means of production and control it, and for the benefit of the few and not for the benefit of the majority. That is what capitalism is. Capitalism is essentially a system of minority ownership, control, beneficiation. That is what capitalism is. And when you extend this beyond your national borders, then that becomes imperialism. And then the question is, why do you extend it beyond your national borders? Because you've exploited your nation, the resources in your nation, and you want more profit, more returns, higher returns. So then you go beyond your borders to invest in order to make more returns. So colonialism was a form of investment in Africa in order to reap returns. And the returns came, as you all know now, in the form of they building railway lines and so on. And then they exported our timber, our gold, our diamonds, and so on. And these are what they used to come and build England and Belgium and so on. So imperialism is when capitalism goes beyond its borders. Now, Nkrumah, then this is why Nkrumah is so well respected in academic and philosophical circles, in case you don't know. Nkrumah then took the work of Lenin further, and he wrote Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. So I hope you can see the evolution of the ideas there from capitalism, which itself came from the system that was before, the system that was before, the landed aristocracy, and so on. Mercantilism, out of which came capitalism, and capitalism then evolved into imperialism. Imperialism then became the basis for colonialism. And so you can see the evolution. And what Nkrumah was arguing in that book, if you like, is what we are seeing in this short paragraph. He's brought us face to face with the central argument that Brother Halal has kind of opened, if you like, the Pandora box to show us the nationalist forces at work. So I just thought I should explain what imperialism is. So that,
Okay. Brother Kwame,
yes.
will you then say that those elements or various stages of what you're talking about are then the different forms of imperialism? As this text is trying to say, the neocolonialism, the colonialism, and the rest are just different forms of imperialism.
Yes. So neo-colonialism is just two words. Neo means new, and the word colonialism that was there before. So neo-colonialism basically means the new colonialism. Some people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that colonialism never ended. But what they don't understand is that, or they understand, but people argue how they like. The old form of colonialism, remember, colonialism took different forms. Yeah. So there is colonialism, and then there is colonization. So South Africa Zimbabwe, then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. And those territories, they suffered colonize and Kenya and others, our brothers and sisters in East to Southern Africa, they suffered colonization, which is different from colonialism. So that's the difference. So in other words, the imperialists came to live on the land and were directly controlling the land and the resources. You see, in West Africa, they did not really live on the land the way it could be because of the heat, because West Africa is very hot. Could be, I don't know, but I'm just saying. And the mosquito, I think mosquito really did them in. But in Nigeria, there's a place called the Jos Plateau where they lived. But in West Africa, you didn't have citizens of the imperialist nation coming to live, permanently, like in the cooler territories of South Africa, Namibia, and so on. So there's a difference between colonization and colonialism. So when colonialism ended, to some extent, from 1957 onwards, then we were face to face with colonization, where you had citizens of the imperialist nation living on the land, like in South Africa and in Rhodesia, where they declared UDI, and they were not prepared to live. In fact, in Angola, something similar happened. So then we had to go to war with them to say to them, we need our land back. So that war, that direct war, was so that we take back the land. That war is still continuing. So to cut a long story short, brother Pigeon, neocolonialism now is the way in which imperialism has now dialectically metamorphosed. And Nkrumah and others started telling us about the way it works and how it could be more dangerous, because now it is your father who is the president and he's a black man, she's a black woman, or your uncle is now the minister and he is stealing state resources, but he's black. So what do? Do you take a gun and shoot your own uncle? You understand? So neocolonialism is also a tool of imperialism.
Thank you. Permit me to go to Jah Musa, and then I will come back to you, Sawindok. Jah Musa, please go ahead. Jah Musa. Give thanks. Jah Musa, can you hear me?
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Go ahead. You could ask what you have anything to say. I was listening very keenly, and that's something that's hard for me to do. Listen. So yeah, I'm very interested, and I'm glad you invited me here. So yeah. So
I know Ja Ras, of course, give thanks Ras. I know we had Brother Kwam, just for your information, we had a very conflicting discussion with Ja Musa, maybe 10 minutes towards this discussion, on whether we should be taking care of the welfare of the people, uniting and do practical things of either helping people with the shelter, food and the rest and everything else. But then the conversation moved further. Why are they not having food? Why are they not having shelter? Is it because we are not there to help? Or is it because of imperialism that is ensuring that they don't have food or shelter? And what will it take for us to get out of that? And the conversation is, yes, we either be either practical, but then how do you become either physical without awakening, which is consciousness? So how do you then mobilize what now the passage says, alliance of progressive forces? Those progressive forces are awakened forces. They cannot progressive if they're not awakened. So then that was bringing the fundamental reason why I was insisting, why do we do the reading and why do we study Nkrumah? Because we understand that irrespective of everything that goes on physically, the awakening of the mind is the greatest tool for us to even achieve anything we want to do, either physically or not physically. And the forces or the unity of the awakened minds, as Brother Ja, I think other members have said before, if the awakened or the conscious minds do not unite again, they might be toppled by those counter-reactionary forces. So it's about how do you first of all awaken the minds of the people, so that the people can then know where the problem is and fight the problem, rather than how do you get their stomach to be full and food and maybe donate for them to have a good house, while the problem starts with the neo-colonial puppet governments that ensures that they don't have it, and that through imperialism as well. So that's a hot conversation we had for around 10 to 15 minutes. And I was telling him, you see, as much as even you have progressive forces like in Burkina Faso, if Ivory Coast, Nigeria is not liberated as well, the Ivory Coast will still ensure that Burkina Faso goes down. They will still ensure that the top will go down, right? So then it means that no one is safe until everyone else is safe. And that's I think what Nkrumah said. No independence of Ghana is meaningless until it's tied to the liberation of Africa. So even as much as few of us are liberated, we cannot go to struggle until we find the majority liberated to join the forces, or else the few of us might be toppled. And that's the conversation we had a bit. I don't know if Ras Rastafari maybe might be able to connect this to the text. Musa, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, that is the conversation, and that was a great conversation, because talking to you has made me humble myself and see things different. But because of what I see on the ground, that's what makes me express myself in that way. Because, and even for us to have a stronger organization, Pan African, we're actually Marcus Garvey, not Du Bois. Marcus Garvey, he was an active man. He did a lot to create finances. So that's what I was saying. If we don't connect, but true Pan African is open,
Brother
and
Musa, we are losing you. Maybe your network is not stable.
No,
okay,
brother
hold
Pigeon,
on, maybe
we did not
maybe
miss
it's
him.
my
Maybe you
wind.
missed him. It's okay.
Okay.
We didn't miss you. Maybe brother Pigeon's connection. Brother Pigeon, if I may just respond to brother Jar. So brother Jar, I think you've raised a very important point, which I don't think anybody has mentioned yet. Maybe others will, which is the alliance of progressive forces. So that is the key issue today. From
Yeah, it
from
is,
from
and that's
Libya,
what we're doing now.
yeah, from Libya,
So
yeah, from Libya to Cairo, from Cairo to Cape, we have to find the progressive forces, Sudan, all of that, and then we need to form an alliance. Currently,
that
as far as I know,
and
yeah, go on.
Andy Sahel with it, all of
Mm,
them
mm,
backing him and being on that side of
mm,
progressive movement. Because
mm,
me, as a Rasta man, that's how I find out a lot, because I have brethren that are Rasta plus a
mm,
Pan African. So
mm,
on the 25th of
mm,
this month, right, they're supposed to have something in the city, in Accra, just a Pan African, everybody coming together. So all those who are in Ghana that's close to Accra, then I advise you to go and see what's happening, because that's going to be a unity of all. It'll be a great sight to see all our organizations coming together. And then before that, I think uh, sometime earlier, they're supposed to have something happening where ones and ones said they were coming out to be a part of that. So, when whoever's out there, no matter whose organization there, we all support it, because we are one. Pan African belongs to us. His Majesty Kwame Nkrumah, Asajifo, um, Kenyatta, and others that came together in the OAU, not the AU, because you can't have no no unity without organization of African unity. So if you don't have organization and you just have African unity, it's not going to work properly. Yeah, because His Majesty bore the oath. That's why we know, because His Majesty did a lot of stuff for our people. But this history needs to be told, because a lot of us, complain about certain things, even when it comes to the um the Black Christ. People say down with Christianity, nothing to do, but we have to realize that some people they have certain things close to them, but they still put aside their differences. Marcus Garvey was a Christian, but he still um, how His Majesty, which was a devoted Christian, but of the Black Christ. So it's two types of Christ: the white one, which will run, which distorted the people that will make everybody feel, God, we don't want to hear about that. But when you heard the story about our people and His Majesty, then we can have acceptance in the Muslims and everybody else. We have a acceptance for the way of life. We say, okay, when we come to fan of Africa, we've all put aside our differences and we're working on the common goal. That's why we're all here for the same reason, because we're in the same boat. So if we allow this faith, which is personal, so as far as I'm concerned, someone's way they see the creator, even if you don't see him. If you say, I'm my own creator, you are a subject to see life how you see it. As long as you don't hurt nobody, kill nobody, do bad things to people, do unto others, and keep it simple, we should be all right. But we need to organize. We need to centralize and come together. And when we do that, we can feed our people. We can do a lot for our people. So we can be the light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have to wait for a system that we know is corrupt to help us. You know, if Ghana comes behind and actually be part and parcel of Burkina Faso, that's a different thing. But how can you say you're part and you want to be a part, but when we go and come, we need visas? Huh? If I go to my immigration officer, I got to give him a story. Because if I'm leaving, he's charging me because I need to pay for visa, coming in and going out. That's very discouraging. You say I'm home. This is Sankufa. I'm home. You tell me come home, but when I come home, you're charging me. Huh? You're
Yes.
charging me.
You're raising very interesting points indeed. I think the points are also very relevant for our Saturday sessions, actually. When we are looking at the aspect of the total unification of Africa, on Saturday we concentrate on that. What do we mean with these issues of passport, visas, military? And Nkrumah spoke about them. In fact, Nkrumah had the vision about them as early as possible. And he told them, let's do away with this. Let's unite it in 1960s. They've never had Nkrumah's call up to date in 2025. They've never had what Nkrumah even proposed in the first meeting of OAU. But yes, we are here because they have failed to do it. So what are you going to do? Are you also going to fail to do it? Very important question, Ras.
Yeah, and another question was with passports. Everybody said they're gonna have a passport for it. Pan African said we have our own passport. This one said they're having our own this, our own that. So how much passports do we need? We should have one passport for all.
Thank you. Ross, yes, I will invite that conversation on our Saturdays. But yes, also in regards to this text, do you have anything to say in regards to the text?
In regards to the text. Okay, you know what?
Yes.
Right now, I can't really see the writing is small because someone can read a base of it and then I can
Ja,
feel it and talk
Ja,
about it.
Ja,
Yeah.
you have spoken about the text, the alliance of progressive forces. You went and learned. So that is what was that was your contribution. The alliance
Okay,
of,
no problem.
and you
That's that.
said there's a meeting in Ghana and that the alliance are going to be there. Is that what you said something of the kind? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a meeting
So,
on the 26th of this month.
of this one, Brother Pigeon, please know that date, and
No,
let's. I'm sure you already know. Yeah.
yeah, I think Raspal has told us about it in the last week. Maybe we never noted it. But
Wonderful.
Raspal had spoken about the Rastafarians meeting, I think, in Ghana.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's.
our brethren Ross Ashford, he's the one that's spearheading it for the Rasta, the one that letting people know what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Pigeon,
The same one that
Pigeon,
deals with the medical marijuana. Remember, I said medical.
Yeah.
Even though every piece of it is medical, but you have to make sure you make people understand.
Stress that word.
Medical,
Yeah. So, Brother
which
PG,
they're still fighting for.
yeah, Brother PG, my understanding is that from what Jai is saying is that that meeting is not just for Rastafarians; it's a meeting of the progressive forces, and that the Rastafarians will also be there. That's my understanding, unless I got it wrong.
Yeah, about it's two meetings. One will be the Rastas are having it on the 26th, and other people are coming, and then it's another meeting that my other brethren was telling me, oh, we'll be doing to that one too, because he invited me to another one that's coming up later. So he said we will represent them there, and also they could then we have, when you get there you have information dialogue, uh, give them information, keep them coming, keep them involved. They can feel the unity.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now they see Pan Africans working on the ground.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ras Musa.
You're
Of course,
welcome.
that's what you say, doing Gavi. They say doing Gavi. Yeah, let me get to Sawindok, Ras, because of time, Ras Musa. Let me get to Sawindok, and then I'll get to Ras Pala, who hasn't spoken, then also Brother Coco is in line, who hasn't also spoken. So, Sawindok, I know you may be coming up with either question or sharing your thinking. Then I'll go to Ras Pala and then Brother Coco. So please go ahead, Sawindok.
Now, I don't know where to start, but let me try. Imperialism and capitalism and neocolonialism, but not in the order that I have mentioned them. Are they tools, so to say, by states only? Or can they be practiced by individuals as well? And subsequent or following that.
Yeah, brother, welcome. Can you rephrase
Yeah.
your question again? You are asking whether those three things are what? Instruments of a nation or individuals? Was that your question?
I said, are those instruments practiced by states only, or are those instruments used by states only to achieve whatever they want, or can they be used by individuals as well?
Right. So let's get something straight for all of us. The state itself is an instrument. So when we talk about the state, we mean the machinery of state, the police, the army, the parliament, that state, those state institutions are also instruments. And so the state cannot use itself. Somebody has to wield the instrument. And our understanding, and people can come in here if they want, is that in a capitalist state, there is a group of people called the capitalist class. They are a group of people. And it is this group, it's not individuals, it's this group of people who are a class and who have class consciousness. It's they who control the state and use it for their purposes. So that is the understanding.
Sawindok?
So it's not about individuals.
Okay.
No one individual can wield such power unless maybe they're a monarch with wide powers. Yeah, because even in a monarchy, there are competing interests even within the monarchy itself. Because the monarch is part of a monarchy, and monarchies themselves can have competing interests.
Yes, Brother Kwame. Thank you. And Professor Jalal. Brother Kwame through brought our attention to colonialism and colonization, but is there also another thing as coloniality. Uh,
Coloniality is, if you like, it's like an adjective. It's like yeah, it's like an adjective. Coloniality, or you can say that it's like a noun, isn't it? Coloniality, or the colonial mentality, if you like. Yes, there should be something like coloniality. Yeah, why not? Why not?
Brother Ja, African unity. You brought me to something that begs me to question or to ask: has the unity been attained, or is it still in the process of being attained? African unity
Oh,
to me is very ambiguous.
okay, Val, put it this way. What Ibrahim Tory done was that he awoken a lot of people to say, now let's move. So that made my Rasta communities and different communities say, yeah, let's join him, let's join him. So that's bringing the people out. That's bringing the forces together. You understand? So with all that said and done, is that it's happening. Through that happened, it was like a domino effect. So what you're saying is keep up the momentum, because no matter how it was done, we want the same thing. What he's doing, Pan-Africanism, grounded. He stopped. He did his part with what he had to do. And once he got control, he changed the game to Pan-Africanism. And the people see it, and the youth love it, you
Okay.
know. And
Can,
the
can,
youth are going with
can
it
I?
because they said that's what we want. No
Okay.
one wants
Um,
bloodshed.
mm,
No one wants violence. But that's what we want. We want to unite, make one Africa, one president, one money, one passport.
mm.
Simple for all, home and abroad. You can't distinction people because now, even now, they have the federal United Nations. Now we have a sixth region, but there
Okay.
they want us to um to have a DNA test to prove that we're Africans. I felt insulted. Me, a black man, know my history, know my story, know that my people were taken away. Even some went there free to the Western world because we were the first ones. Way before Christopher Columbus, we traveled the world. So we were there. We built up these places, and now you telling us that now we're coming home after we went through that middle passage, or some of us didn't make it. You're telling us that now you want us to have a DNA test to prove.
Brother Rasmus, please, thank you for your coming in. But I think we are running out of time a bit. But thank you for this. I think we need to have this conversation on a Saturday again, Brother Kwame. I think we'll have to open up this for a Saturday conversation. But thank you, Brother Musa. Yes, Brother Kwame?
Uh, I just, because of Brother Ja, I just wanted to make a very quick point, and that um uh, yeah, there's an aeroplane landing behind you, brother. Um, so so yeah, so when it comes to the question of religion, I want to make 2 points. First of all, it is our position that the state must be a secular state, and everyone should be free to worship whoever they want to worship. That's the first point. The second point is that, Brother Jack can correct me, is that the Rastafari movement, the Rastafarians saw Emperor Haile Selassie as the representative of God on earth, and he was venerated, and that God, the idea is that God is a human being. God is not a spirit. God is a person, the human being. And there is a song by Bob Marley in which he uses the lyrics, which says the Almighty God is a living man. So I just want to bring that to our attention, that there is that part of religion that sees God as a living man, and
Yeah,
that
yeah, a living man.
uh,
You see?
and
So,
that understanding is also championed by the Nation of Islam in the U.S., Minister Louis Farrakhan and his group, where the position is that they don't accept that God is some kind of amorphous being, some kind of spirit. That they believe God is a human being, and that Almighty God is a human being like us. And you can go to chapter 1 of Consciences, that we've already looked at in the past, and say that it brings up the three issues of deism, theism, and atheism, but from a philosophical point of view. And if you take deism, which is the idea that God is inside you, and you could argue that actually you are a personification of the Almighty God. So I just thought I'll bring that to our attention as we are on this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Permit me please to finish the line of people who have been spoken. It will be of interest that members who spend over 2 hours here, or close to 2 hours, also get an opportunity to say something. So I'll go to Ras Pala, then I'll go to Brother Coco. General Anunnaki, the Ras is in the space. Please go ahead, my brother. Share with us your thinking on this paragraph. General Ras Pala.
Yes, son of the league, give thanks once again. Also to the family at large, the Africans, give thanks. Okay, what I'll share on this text is basically the first and the last sentence. The first sentence, it says, imperialism is the highest state of capitalism, will continue to flourish in different forms as long as conditions permit it. Yes, it's true. That's what's happening also here in South Africa, whereby big corporate businesses owned by white people, of course, have lobby power over government officials, whereby even if the official, maybe from ANC or whatever, may come up with a policy which will benefit the South Africans at large, the business sector will manipulate that decision or reverse that decision using their proxies. These proxies are obviously the political parties that they fund, including first and foremost the former National Party of the apartheid government. These parties are funded by the Oppenheimers, your Rothschild, big companies of white people. And you remember the Rothschild, they own the IMF. So if one family of white people owns IMF and can offer loans to a country, that already tells you the lobby power they have, irregardless whether we are in democracy or black people are so-called free or whatnot or independence. The fact is that so long as the white people have created so that the economy remains with them global, they still pull the string. So I understand that first part, that imperialism will flourish in different forms as long as these conditions is this economic global power they have over the government officials. Then the last I will add is this one where it says that its fruits and resources for the benefit of few against the well-being of the many. So that one is just obvious because let's make an example here in South Africa. We have like I think stats says that we have about 3 million, if I'm not mistaken, of white people, and we have about 65 million black people. That's a very huge difference. It's not even half of the number of black people. Yet the 2 million white people own 90% of the land of South Africa till today. So yeah, you can see how capitalism plays out. And when you walk around the countries of South Africa, since I'm a person who travels from the rural areas to the urban areas, you will find out that there are vast lands in South Africa that are just fenced and unused and are not supposed to be used by civilians because they are part of property of maybe another white family that no longer stays in South Africa. But because South Africa has privatization policies, it is their private property. I'll end there for now, but this is the two things I've picked up in this paragraph that I believe we are still under this thing here in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Raspala. Brother Coco? Brother Coco, please come in, if you are able.
Yes, thank you, brother. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Brother Coco.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Reading this paragraph here is all about Dr. Nkrumah. He campaigned against imperialism even when he had his Ghana. You could argue that this is a leader who led his own country and he could have retired gracefully, ran his own country, and just been comfortable with his children or with his nation of Ghana. But what he could see is something that lots of us, even when we are standing on the shoulders of the tallest giants, we can never see. And that's what most of the African misleaders fail to see, was what Dr. Nkrumah was seeing from years back there. And I think when that word imperialism came into perspective for me, I recalled one book in which he wrote. He wrote this book before he came into power. And he wrote this book when he was still a student. And he only published it later. This book was called Towards Colonial Freedom. So, sir, welcome. I recommend that you get hold of that book. Pigbin, if you haven't shared that book in the library, please do share it. And it's soft, it's easy to understand and digest. But allow me to read something about imperialism from that book. But before I read that on imperialism, I just want to clarify a little confusion which Brother Kwame is creating with how he has described a couple of things, which I'm sure he is trying by all means to make we all understand. So he's saying colonialism and colonization. I think what he's trying to say is settler colonialism and the settler colonialism. Another one is called exploitation colonialism. So they are both two forms of colonialism. It's still the same thing, regardless of how you put it. One is settler because they bring in their own people to settle in your own country because the conditions allow, like what they have done in Gaza, what they've done in South Africa, and what they have done in Zimbabwe and Australia and Kenya to an extent. And of course, Namibia, Angola, and Mozambique. And what they are still doing in Reunion and Mayotte. So it's all different things. They are there. But colony, a colony is also explained in there as well for you. But welcome, and anyone else who's interested in that. But the most important one to me is the explanation of imperialism. He links that to Rome. He links that to the Greco-Roman origin. I'll give you the name, brother. Don't worry. Let me read it first. In general, imperialism is a policy which aims at creating, organizing, and maintaining an empire. In other words, it is a state vast in size, composed of various distinct national units and subject to a single centralized power or authority. This is the conception of empire. Diverse peoples brought together by force under a common power. It goes back to the idea of Alexander the Great with his Greco-Asiatic empire. He conquered the then known world and sat down and wept because he had no more territory to conquer. So the imperialism here is also linked to Julius Caesar. All right, we know about that one. And the modern imperialism, of course, is distinguished from those ancient ones. Again, we talk about the Norman conquest. We talk about the annexations of Frederick the Great and the American pioneers as well in the West, in America. It's imperialism. So I think to also answer one of your questions, brother, welcome, you will have to read the Confessions of an Economic Hitman and also the New Confessions of an Economic Hitman, because that one shows how they then conquer a state. But essentially, imperialism is by a few, is by a class. That class of capitalists have managed to make labor just a commodity, okay? And they have made money an important element, a factor of economic, factor of economy, as you know. And labor is being bought and sold cheaply under imperialism. And we are in that stage now where a few people rule the world, and a few people even here where I live in the West, they rule what is happening here in the West. And again, we tend to make generalizations, sweeping generalizations to say white people this, white people that. The more white people that I meet in my working life here in the UK are very poor people, very exploited like me. And it's the same thing. They use those same white people to exploit other worlds because they gave them the exceptions. I mean, the idea that they were all in it together. But always, there is always someone at the top. There is that hierarchy. Let's not forget the hierarchy. There is a picture which was shared in our Ubuntu group. Sister Portia will remember that, hopefully. It shows who benefits under capitalism, under imperialism. Let's not forget who benefits. And then contrast that with our own Ubuntu system, where we know that there is the creator, there is nature, and then there are the ancestors, and then there is Mad and Ubuntu. So there's that flat system versus the hierarchic system that of the West, which thrives under that imperialism thrives under that hierarchy. It came back and imposed that on ourselves. And that's why we are like caught up in a spider's web and we can't go anywhere because we need to survive at the same time. But at the same time, we are using the same systems that they brought here. So let me just stop here for the sake of time. But I'll share the book and I'll be happy to discuss this again at another time. And greetings, Professor Jalal. I've been to one of his discussions where he was with Professor Molefi, Kete Asante. They did a very brilliant combination. So I think if he could bring Professor Molefi to the Saturday evening, it will be a smashing hit. Thank you.
Brother Kwame, Thank you very much, Brother Coco. And I think I've gone through my list. Only one person, I think he's gone. There's a person who was there with the name Oyode, I think, and he's gone. But I think everybody in the list have been able to give them opportunity, apart from Brother Baru who joined us just very late. Brother, coming back to you.
Yeah. Yes. Brother Coco.
I'm still here, brother.
Yeah. Colonization is different from colonialism. What you are calling settler with the word settler is what is meant by colonialism. There's another word called colonialization. So I know we use the word settler, and we think when we use the word settler, it makes it clearer as to what we mean, which is that members of the imperialist nation have settled in the colonies. So it's not a confusion. It's just that people use the word settler colonialism, but then settler colonialism is what is colonialization, which is what I was trying to explain. Thank you.
Thank you, comrades. Brother Comrade, you have something to say from your side? I think you've been able to share your thinking a bit in between, but you can go ahead.
But you haven't shared your thinking. Have you shared your thinking?
No, that's sometimes the disadvantage of being a chair.
Share your thinking.
Yeah, let me take maybe 2 minutes. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to share my thinking. One, I really want to acknowledge the first sentence with the element of different forms. I was interested in the different forms so that we might know
the different forms of
imperialism. That was very interesting because I think you have brought it clearly, the different forms.
Hold on. It's not that it has different forms. You mean it has different instruments. So colonialism is an instrument of imperialism. Colonization, which as Brother Coco has explained, you can use the word settler in addition, is also an instrument of imperialism. And then neo-colonialism is also, so it's not that they are different forms. I can see what you are saying, but imperialism is imperialism and it uses these tools.
Thank you. So basically, then the text was trying to derive to the tools, that it will continue to flourish in various tools then in standard forms, various tools. Yeah. I think that is what I was interested.
Because you see, the imperialists don't like us to use the word imperialism against them. So if you notice the word imperialism, there's been some kind of pushback on that word, because of its historical connotation. Thank you. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so I think it's very important for us to understand that even when we are seeing neo-colonialism today, even when we are talking about colonialism, we must get the link between them, that they are one and the same. And therefore, it's just in different tools, but they are one and the same purpose. They serve the same purpose, irrespective of how we see it. So we cannot say that this is better than the other, but rather the same purpose they serve. I think that's a very important thing that I wanted to get from that element of just different forms. Then the second thing is the conditions that permit them. That's very important for me. And it then means that it only happens when the condition permits, which means neo-colonialism exists today because the condition has permitted it. And that speaks to what Nkrumah says in the second line, that if there's national awakening and alliance of progressive forces, then that condition cannot permit imperialism. And therefore, for us to stop imperialism, we need to have these two conditions, the awakening and the alliances of progressive forces. To me, I find them as very fundamental in the struggle to defeat imperialism, the awakening. And I believe what we are doing here in terms of awakening the mind, in terms of that consciousness that's going around and people are becoming rising and becoming revolutionary, is basically very essential in defeating imperialism. Because you see, for example, when you talk of Burkina Faso, places people have awakened a bit, we can say at least they are trying to do away with the French and the rest. You see, they're awakening. But again, is a reminder that that awakening alone is not enough. The alliance of progressive forces is necessary, which then calls for unity. So these two conditions are very essential for us as I read this paragraph. But I will also look at the other element of judging whether we have attained what we want. So whether have we attained to defeat imperialism will be based on those two conditions. When there's no nations or people exploiting others. And therefore, as long as in any state or any society, there's still nation or people exploiting others, we cannot say that we have completely defeated imperialism. So that's also very important to me. And the reason why there's that exploitation is vested interest. So that's also very important to me that I wanted to highlight, the vested interest. So permit me just to stop it there and just be very brief as such so that we can bring this one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's make the announcement, Pigeon, now that you shared your thinking. What are the announcements for this Saturday and then the ALD? Thank you.
Yeah, I unfortunately I lost some of my text, but I can check on my email. Help me do that, brother. I think it's in Pan African Identity something, but I lost the text. I will check it. But we are looking forward to ALD, Africa Liberation Day, and we'll be having key 4 points that I would like to share with the members. We will share it again for what you're going to focus on once the poster is ready for the ALD. But we'll be having, of course, 4 speakers, and we have speakers already. Probably we will just be refining the presentation for that, and we'll welcome all members to join us. That will take place on our next Saturday. Our next Saturday will be 24th, not 25th. So we'll have Africa Liberation Day on our Africa Unification sessions. And I think Brother Kwame will help us to link the unification and liberation in that day as well, so that we can be able to have the match in between. Next Thursday, we'll continue the reading. Of course, we have classes coming on Tuesday for Swahili. We have some other reading classes that are coming as well. So with that, Brother Kwame, if you don't know if you've been able to get for me the Saturday one.
Yes, the Saturday session is armed liberation struggles.
Wow, that's very interesting. I need to look for the book of Kwame Nkrumah, the handbook for revolutionary warfare. That will be very important. So I'll have to send that book attached to this. Thank you very much, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, armed liberation struggles this Saturday.
Brother Raspala, please help us. I'll talk with Brother Raspala if he can prepare something on that in regards to Alliance of Sahel as well. And anybody who's willing to speak on that topic, armed revolutionary struggle, please get in touch with me so that we can have it already in place. What you want to speak about that, so we'll give you time for that. Brother Bernard, we always bring it to an end, but of course, let me hear what you want to say, even though it's out of our orders, but I know you is your first.
A question for Brother Kwabe, and before then, Brother Coco mentioned the generalization, which is something I have observed that when we say white, and we know there are whites also that are actually revolting.
Okay.
And Brother Kwame, my point is, how do you compare our path to liberation to the European Revolution? Because we know that this elite system in Europe is what actually stands for imperialism. And they have tortured their own Europeans and they liberated themselves. Well, even though that may be partial.
Okay, brother.
In Africa, it's the same force that have worked in Africa and worked in Asia.
Brother Bernard.
Yes, please.
Please, if you can allow me, because your question goes to the same ALD topic, please send me the question directly so that I can forward to Brother Kwame or send to Brother Kwame, but you'll have to handle it on either Armed Revolutionary Struggle on Saturday, that you must ensure you either come, and or on the Africa Liberation Day where Brother Kwame will be speaking. So send the question so that Brother Kwame can prepare some response in regards to that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all comrades for your time. In fact, today we had so many comrades joining us, those who join us for the first time, those who may be joining us for the second time. I have renewed the broadcast list, so some of you may be joining our broadcast list for the first time. feel free to always get engaged with us, and we are appreciating your time, and we're looking forward for you to joining us more and more. So thank you very much. Let's continue doing this. This is our contribution to the revolutionary struggle for Pan-Africanism. Thank you all, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Pigeon, just so everybody knows, Brother Coco has shared some text. So if you want to download them, please do before we close the meeting. You've got about 2 minutes to do that if you want to.